The story opens on a battlefield drowned in fire and fury. A young boy with fiery red hair, clad in shining armor, stands calmly with a sword in hand. Despite the towering threat before him, he offers a small smile. A massive dragon, shrouded in its own raging fire, roars in defiance. Beneath its shadow, the boy and his party prepare for battle. Without hesitation, the boy suddenly dashes toward the dragon. His teammates spring into action, covering him with ranged magic and attacks. A saintess steps forward, quickly conjuring a magic circle beneath her, her hands glowing with holy power. In a graceful leap, the boy launches himself high into the air. Suspended above the dragon, he raises his sword with precision, preparing to strike. A fairy girl from the party, light and elegant, cheers for him from below, shouting, "Go for it, Luke!" With a single deadly motion, the blade descends. The boy's strike is perfect. It slices clean through the dragon's neck. The enormous beast crashes to the ground, its head separated from its body. Cheers erupt from the party. Their expressions shine with pride. Luke, now standing tall before the fallen dragon's head, calmly slides his sword back into its scabbard. He stands like a true hero. Later, the group sets up a camp near the slain dragon's body. A bonfire flickers softly in the darkness, casting long shadows. Luke sits by the fire and glances at the others, asks about the detail of next job. The gray-bearded old man looks up and answers that another dragon will we tough one, while Saintess, smiling, looks at Luke and say that he will be fine. However, Luke responds firmly that we all will be fine. Suddenly, everything changes. A blood-covered hand trembles in the darkness. Luke collapses to his knees, a gaping hole torn through his chest. Blood pours from the wound as he gasps for breath. Around him, dark shadows close in. His eyes widen. The dark shadows turn to be his party members. The same people he fought alongside now stand before him as enemies. The old man steps forward expressionless, says that this is where we part ways. Confused and desperate, Luke tries to ask why. His voice is weak, barely holding on. The old man answers coldly, saying that the kingdom has placed a bounty on him. Luke blinks, shocked. The saintess steps forward, her eyes filled with guilt, asking Luke for forgiveness as this also hurts them, but they have no choice. Yelling, Luke asks why, the pain in his chest now burning with betrayal. Suddenly, a calm, brutal voice cuts through the chaos, saying that he is a monster. Luke looks up at her, stunned. The old man speaks, says that he is the only S-rank warrior in the kingdom and slay countless monsters while protecting the nation. But now, since the monster threats have decreased, he has become a new threat to kingdom. The old man explains that a single dragon can wipe out a nation, but a man who slays dragons alone can destroy even more. Luke stammers, while saying that he never thought to do such thing. Meanwhile, interrupting him, Saintess reply that who knows the future, as she raises her holy sword. Luke instinctively reaches for his own sword, but with a swift gesture, the old man snaps his fingers. Chains of pure magic coil around Luke, binding him in place. He can't move, can't fight. The old man speaks again, saying that, "Rest in peace by the hands of your comrades. That's all we can do for you now." Seeing Luke struggles against the chains, a party member snickers, commenting that, "How pathetic. He is the same man who slayed dragons." A girl standing behind the old man also speaks, that the master magic is incredible. Meanwhile, Luke says that this may be a mistake while looking at the L. Then the old man ordered L to kill Luke. Stepping forward, L raised her wand to attack Luke, while Luke looked her with gaze. Suddenly, her hand trembled. Her eyes water. She begins to cry. The others look at her, disappointed. The saintess steps forward to take over. By holding her holy sword over Luke, she asked if he had any last words. Luke looks up, his eyes sharp, no longer confused, but burning with fury, said to remember this. With a flash of divine steel, everything fades to black, and Luke's head falls to the ground. 3 months later, after the betrayal of S-rank warrior Luke, far from the grand kingdoms and war-torn cities, in the remote region of Azima, life seemed peaceful on the surface. But chaos was erupting within a small village. A swarm of demonic bees had attacked. Villagers ran in fear, trying to protect their homes. In the center of the panic stood a mysterious masked man, cloaked in black, facing down the beasts. Across from him, a young woman watched in fear and confusion. Her name was Lelam, the village's apothecary. The masked man stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "Stay back," he told Lelam. He raised his hand. "Pest control begins." With a powerful chant, Lugo, the masked man, unleashed a fiery spell. Flames burst outward in all directions, engulfing the demonic bees. Every insect was reduced to ash in seconds, but so was everything around them. Trees, grass, leaves, even the ground scorched black under the intensity of the magic. The village erupted into cheers. Lugo had saved them all, but as the flames died out, Lelam stood in silence, staring at the devastation. Her eyes weren't filled with admiration, but suspicion, since she has never seen magic like that. Later, in the village chief's house, Lelam slammed her hand on the table, saying something is off about Lugo. The old chief, calm and collected, looked at her and asked, what exactly is bothering her? Lelam thought carefully, then listed the strange events one by one. Last week, he handled a pack of wolves, alone. The week before that, he scared off a charging cyclops, just by looking at it. And before that, he crushed a group of thieves, in one night. The chief smiled and asked Lelam, shouldn't they thankful for that? Lelam groaned and rubbed her forehead, answering yes, but still it's strange. She paused. 3 months ago, Luke, the S-rank adventurer, died, and that's the same time Lugo showed up in our village. She leaned closer and her eyes sharp. What if Lugo killed Luke? What if he's hiding a bounty on his head? He never even takes off his helmet. The chief chuckled. Then we're lucky he hasn't decided to kill us too. Besides, since he arrived, nothing bad has happened. Lelam sighed. His logic was frustratingly simple, but it didn't erase her doubts. Still unconvinced, she asked, where is Lugo now? The chief replied casually that he has sent Lugo to deal with Black Bear. Hearing this, Lelam's eyes widened. Then she told Chief not to treat monster extermination as a grocery errand. Determined to uncover the truth, Lelam ventured into the forest alone. Raising her finger, she cast a spirit spell, summoning a guiding spirit to track Lugo's presence. The glowing wisp fluttered ahead, leading her deeper into the woods. Her thoughts raced as she followed the trail. Who are you really, Lugo? Eventually, she spotted him. Or so she thought. Lugo was sitting on the ground, perfectly still. He wasn't moving, not sleeping, just still. Lelam crouched behind some bushes, watching silently, confused by what he was doing. But before she could react, a voice whispered behind her, asking her that what she was doing here. She turned, startled, and gasped. Lugo stands right behind her, shocked. Lelam asked Lugo how did he appear behind her. He responded calmly, saying that it was his afterimage. Lelam blinked. Then she shouts on Lugo, asking what kind of ordinary person used stuff like that. However, Lugo asked her what she was doing here. She quickly tried to cover her suspicion, saying that she just came to check on Lugo when she heard Lugo went to forest to deal with Black Bear. Comforting Lelam, Lugo said not to worry since he has set up traps to catch them. Lelam frowned at Lugo, saying that even knights from the royal capital struggle to capture black bears, and he is trying to catch them with trap. Lugo didn't argue. Instead, he said Lelam to stay here and watch from her own eyes. He placed a beehive dripping with honey on the forest floor. Around it, he silently cast a gravity spell, warping the space like a trap hidden in plain sight. Then, he and Lelam hid behind nearby bushes, waiting in silence. Minutes passed. Suddenly, a massive black bear emerged from the woods, drawn by the sweet scent of honey. It growled, its eyes locked onto the hive, and then it charged. Like a man possessed, the beast dashed toward the bait, its mind clouded by hunger and instinct. But the moment it stepped inside the circle, crack, the pressure collapsed. The bear's body was flattened instantly, crushed by overwhelming force. Lelam stared in disbelief, thinking how is this even possible? Time passed, and more bears approached the trap. One by one, they were all caught, crushed under the same gravity spell. By the end of the hunt, a mountain of black bears lay in a heap. Leland was speechless, thinking even taking down one is challenge, but Lugo captured 10 within no time. She looked at Lugo. He remained calm, quiet, as if nothing unusual had happened. But Lilim's heart burned with curiosity. She was now more desperate to find Lugo's identity. Late at night, Lilim sat by candlelight, writing in her diary. Her pen moved slowly across the pages as she reflected on recent events. Since the disappearance of S-rank adventurer Luke, monster threats have spiked worldwide. Farms had been destroyed, livestock stolen, and transport systems thrown into chaos. And now, even the remote Azima village was beginning to feel the weight of that chaos. The next morning, Lilim stood frozen in shock, sweat dripping down her face, as she heard that carriage had been attacked and all the supplies were stolen. The coachman, still catching his breath, explained. It was the sylphs. They ambushed him on the road. He barely managed to protect a few crates. Lilim rushed to inspect what was salvaged, but when she opened the crate, her heart sank. It was filled with empty bottles. She slumped against it, defeated, thinking now how she will prepare medicine. Suddenly, shouting echoed through her ears. An old woman screamed in horror. Her precious sweet buns had been stolen. Lilim tried to calm her down, saying that they still have buns in the village. But the old woman snapped back and shouts on Lilim, telling those were S-rank buns. Absolute masterpieces. She can't live without them. Lilim blinked. S-rank buns? For a moment, even she thought about trying one herself. Just then a voice called out, asking why all are making fuss. Lilim turned, ready to explain, and then froze. Lugo stood in front of her, holding a crate. The coachman immediately pointed, telling, "That's the stolen crate." Lugo calmly explained by saying that he found some sylphs making a mess on the edge of the village. They had these supplies, so he took them back. The coachman nodded, stunned, thanking Lugo for saving him. Lilim's eyes lit up. Thanking Lugo, she said now she can make medicine. The villagers began checking their goods with relief, but Lilim noticed something and asked Lugo if something wrong. Lugo paused. Then he said there should be more crate. He looked at the crate again and frowned. Judging by the size of the carriage, these are too few. A lot is still missing. As if on cue, the old woman screamed again. Her buns are still missing. Lilim immediately rushed to check her supplies. And her fears came true. Her own crate was empty too. Lugo realized that he had been fooled by sylphs. Furious, Lugo clenched his fists, then slammed his foot into the ground. Crack, leaving a crater in his wake. Without a word, Lugo turned and stormed into the forest. Lilim, concerned for village, followed Lugo. As they walked, Lugo glanced sideways. Looking at Lilim, he asking her why she is following him. Lilim replied nervously. She just wanted to observe. Unbeknownst to them, they were already being watched. From a distance, hidden in the trees, a sly figure smirked. It was a sylph named Paisha. "Heh, last time he caught me off guard," she murmured. "But this time, I've set tons of traps just for him." Suddenly, without hesitation, Lugo raised his hand and launched a fire spell straight at her location. Boom! Paisha crashed to the ground, coughing from the smoke. Before she could flee, Lugo grabbed her by the head and ordered her to take them to her queen. They walked deeper into the great tree forest. Paisha, now acting cooperative, handed over a map with all traps marked. "She lives beneath the forest's heart," Paisha explained. "These are all the traps on the way. Now that you have it, let me go?" Lugo's reply was sharp and simple. "No." Hearing this, Paisha burst into tears, telling Lugo that he is cruel. Lilim feel pity on Paisha and ask Lugo to release her, since they have a map, so they don't need her anymore. But instead of answering, Lugo pulled Paisha close and suddenly began tickling her. "What? What are you doing?" Paisha flailed in embarrassment. Something fell to the ground. Lilim leaned down to pick it up and asked Paisha if she dropped something. Suddenly her face turned red. In her hand was a pair of underwear, her underwear, which was she wearing a movement ago. Her voice trembled. She asked Paisha that why she have her underwear. Lugo, calm as ever, spoke. It's a classic sylph trick. She used her theft magic to steal your clothes to create an opening for escape. Lelam narrowed her eyes and asked Paisha if that's true. Paisha immediately pointed her finger towards Lugo, saying not to believe his words. Maybe it was all Lugo's plan. Lilam's face flushed even deeper and said, he may look suspicious, but she knows Lugo wouldn't do that. Lugo simply added, believing sylphs is pointless. Lilam took a breath, then turned to Paisha with fury in her eyes, ordered her to take them straight to her queen. Sometime later, deep within the giant tree forest, a storm of fire and fury rained down upon the sylph's nest. The winged beings screamed and scattered in all directions, fleeing for their lives. Trees crackled, smoke twisted in the air, and the peaceful forest turned into a war zone. At the center of it all was Lugo, merciless and silent, his magic blazing through the air. Beside him, Paisha, still bound in ropes, guided them through the burning paths, leading both Lugo and Lilam toward their destination. Eventually, they reached a colossal gate embedded in the roots of an enormous sacred tree. This is the Queen's chamber, Paisha said, her tone playful, hiding something behind her smile. Lilam stepped forward, narrowing her eyes, asked Paisha if there is any trap inside. Paisha giggled. Of course not. It's sacred. No traps allowed. But Lilam didn't trust that smile. Lugo, she warned, don't let your guard down. Without hesitation, Lugo raised his hand and cast a powerful fire spell. Boom! The giant gate exploded into pieces, blown apart by a single blast of magic. Paisha stared at the wreckage in shock. Inside, lying on the floor, was a graceful woman dressed in royal attire, the fairy queen Tiemia. She rose to her feet slowly, coughing as blood trickled from her lips. Lilam stepped back, shocked to see that she survived that blast. Tiemia smiled coldly. Magic of that level doesn't affect me. But her body betrayed her. She coughed blood again. Lugo narrowed his eyes and asked Fairy Queen if that the blessing of Fairy King. Tiemia smirked, saying, yes, and no one can lay a finger on her. Lugo stepped forward, eyes burning, asked Tiemia about supplies that they have stolen from the village. The queen tilted her head, making herself look like that she don't know anything, and asked Lugo what he is talking about. Lugo didn't flinch. By changing question, he asked Queen that what they are planning to do by stealing weapons and drugs. Tiemia's smile widened, answering straight that they want war. Her words silenced the chamber. Even Lelam was stunned. Tiemia's voice turned cold. Revealing her plan, she said that since the only S-ranked adventurer Luke has died, this is her perfect opportunity. Without him, humanity is weak. We'll conquer the humans and take what's rightfully ours. Suddenly, she pointed her finger at Lilam. Before Lugo could react, a strange light enveloped Lelam's body. Her soul began to rise, pulled from her chest by an invisible force. Lugo shouted, but it was too late. Lilam's body collapsed into his arms, soulless, lifeless. Tiemia held the floating soul in her grasp, smiling with twisted pleasure, while saying that her theft magic can even steal souls. She turned her hand toward Lugo next. She activated her magic again. A blinding light surged around her, but nothing happened. Confused, the queen's smile faded. She tried again. Still nothing happened. Tiemia unable to figure out why her magic is not working. Meanwhile, Lugo raised his head, his voice cold. Explaining Tiemia, he said that her magic will not work on someone with greater magical power than her. Hearing this, Tiemia's eyes widened. Meanwhile, Paisha said there is no way an ordinary human could have greater magical power than Tiemia. But Lugo said nothing. Instead, he raised his hands and removed his helmet. Red hair fell free, and a familiar, piercing gaze stared back at them. Tiemia's eyes went wide, unable to believe. Meanwhile, Paisha asked Tiemia if something wrong. Tiemia spoke slowly, trembling. She said that The previous fairy queen once warned her not to cross paths with some humans. The S-rank adventurers. Her voice cracked. But he was supposed to be dead? Hearing Her Majesty's word, Pisha's eyes wide open, unable to believe. Yes, the queen whispered. This man is Luke Othyde. In this world, there exists a power called blessing, and our boy Luke has the blessing of the phoenix. The miracle granted by that divine bird is immortality. In other words, our boy cannot die. With fearsome gaze, Luke says that he will take Lilim's soul and cargo back. He uses powerful and potent magic to restrain the fairy queen and her subject, Pisha, to the ground. The fairy queen can feel the difference in power between them, but at the same time, she doesn't want to give up since she believes she wouldn't be worthy of being called the fairy queen if she backs away in times of adversity like this one. While the fairy queen is trying to break free of Lugo's spell, he willingly takes it off, leaving Tiemia shocked and wondering. She is forced to ask Lugo why he removed the spell when he could have easily crushed her, but our MC tells her that there is something he needs to ask her, which is why he is sparing her ass for the time being. Lugo asks the fairy queen why she would think of starting a war with the humans when she basically has everything she needs inside the forest, like living large and stealing sweets from unsuspecting humans. Forgiving Lugo's ignorance, Tiemia decides to answer the question. Apparently, after Luke's disappearance, monster activity in the kingdom came to an all-time high since there is no one to keep them in check. Other races, like the fairies, are getting hit very hard as a result of this, and even when they ask the humans for help, they are turned down at the city gates, not given the chance to see the proper authorities. As a result of this, the fairy queen comes to the conclusion that occupying the human world and using it as a shield will open human eyes to what is going on around them. Tiemia is confident that the moment humans start fighting monsters, they would hardly have time for them. The fairy queen agrees that the decision she made was drastic, but this is the only way to help her people, or else they are going to get wiped out by the dangerous monsters. Upon hearing this, Lugo realizes that Tiemia isn't just going to war for fun, but she is doing it for the survival of her people. The fairy queen admits defeat and begs our MC to take her life, but at least spare her comrades. In a surprise turn of events, Lugo tells Tiemia to come to Azima village instead, and he promises to protect her and her people. The only thing he asks is that she stop attacking humans, and he further adds that Tiemia's plan might sound good, but at the same time, it is dumb. Lugo informs the fairy queen that there are humans who are pretty strong, and the fairy queen would not even stand a chance against them. The fairies are pretty good liars, and from what Lugo is telling Tiemia, she can clearly see that the guy is not lying. There are humans who are strong, and conceding to this fact, Tiemia decides that giving up on her dumb plan is the best option. Right there, she promises Lugo that she is going to stop attacking humans, but reminds him that they are going to be relying on his protection. Lugo gladly accepts the proposal, and he holds her by the hand to show her that he means business. 2 weeks later, Tiemia and the fairies fully moved into Azima village, and they started adapting to life there. The village's apothecary, Lilim, is not entirely on board with the plan of having the fairies in the village. She has her doubts, but when she talks to the village chief, he doesn't seem to have any issue with the fairies being around. Tiemia, on the other hand, is enjoying life in the village as she cannot have enough of the sweet snacks produced in the village. In addition to the fairies settling down in the village, they also help with other chores, like helping the villagers carry stuff, patrolling the village's outskirts, and tending to the elderly. Even Lilim cannot deny the fact that the fairies have adapted to their life in the village, and in no way have they caused any trouble since they showed up. The village chief assures Lilim that she has nothing to worry about since Lugo has even confirmed that the villagers cohabitating with the fairies will bring nothing but a productive relationship. Lilim agrees to this idea, but something inside her keeps telling her that she cannot fully trust the fairies since they are known to be mischievous creatures. Tiemia rushes over to Lilim, asking her if Lugo likes eating sweet buns too. Lilim tells her that everyone likes sweet buns, and Lugo is no exception when it comes to this. Lilim then asks the queen why she is interested in this fact, and she comes clean about her fantasy of eating sweet buns with our favorite MC. Even at that moment, Lilim finds it hard to resist Timia's smile, which pushes her to hug the little but mischievous creature. Lilim admits that fairies have the cutest and catchiest smiles, which makes this a problem. Suddenly, something important crosses Lilim's mind. Apparently, everyone in the room knows what it is, and it is the fact that officials from the capital are coming to inspect the village. This worries Lilim because the village's fate depends on how the fairies behave. If the inspectors deem the fairies to be a threat, they might use this as an excuse to wipe out the village. While she is worrying over this, the village chief assures her that there is nothing to worry about since Lugo has killed all the nearby monsters, which makes the village a safe haven. The inspectors will come to love Azima village, the old man says. Even with this assurance, Lilim is still worried, and she begs Tiemia to behave herself and also to keep her people in check. Tiemia lets Lilim know that she has nothing to fear because she and the other fairies are ready to show the inspectors the best hospitality they have ever received. Tiemia plans to feed the inspectors all the sweet buns that they want, since she believes that the sweet buns are a specialty from the village. But unknown to her, the sweet buns didn't originate from the village, which means the village is not even the best at making her beloved snack. Meanwhile, the inspectors, Garam and Lulu, are on their way to the capital. The two notice that there has been no sign of monsters as they get closer to the village, which is very weird, given the increase in monster activity over the past months. Lulu's main task as an objective is to study monster ecology, but she is actually being sent to the village to investigate the fairies and the humans. There are reports that the villagers might be getting tricked, which is why the investigation is important. When Lulu asks Garam what he thinks of the fairies, he comes to the same conclusion as everyone else, which is the fact that fairies are more mysterious and dangerous than they actually look. It is known that C-rank adventurers, or lower, have a hard time dealing with the fairies, not to mention ordinary civilians. Upon hearing this, Lulu is glad that she brought Garam with her, as he is a B-rank adventurer who is looking to make results and then move up to A rank. Being the overzealous person that he is, Garam is ready to cut down the fairies if he notices even the slightest movement from them. Suddenly, they notice a disturbance outside, and looking through the window, they see a shadowy figure in the bushes. The two initially assume that this might be a prank from the fairies, but after taking a closer look, Garam realizes that they are in a bigger mess than he had accounted for. He immediately instructs the carriage driver to whip up the horses so that they can move even faster. It turns out that the carriage is being hunted by a beast known as the Death Worm. This is Lulu's first time seeing one, and in the middle of panicking, she still brings out her book to draw a sketch of the creature. Garam, on the other hand, is in full-time panic mode, and he screams at the girl, telling her that this is not the time to draw, because the moment the Death Worm catches up to them, they are goners. Lulu wonders why Garam is panicking since he is supposed to be the escort, and it is his job to take down any monster that attacks them. However, Garam tells Lulu how screwed they are by letting her know that even A-rank adventurers find it hard to take down the Death Worm. Before the two know what is happening, the creature catches up to them and stares right at them through the carriage window, showing its deadly and scary face, ready to gulp them up. In fact, the Death Worm is much bigger than Garam thought, and it has fully cornered the carriage with no chance of escaping. Garam admits that they are at the end, but at that moment, he decides to die fighting instead of sitting in the carriage and dying like a coward. He steps outside, unsheathes his sword, and just when he is ready to charge at the beast's head suddenly flies off. It all happened in a flash, and Lulu assumes that Garam was the one who defeated the beast, but the B-rank adventurer quickly debunks this fact, telling Lulu that he wasn't the one. Standing on top of the dead beast is Lugo, in his insane aura farming pose. After saving their asses, Lugo personally escorts the two to the village, and he tells them to meet the village chief for whatever it is that they need. Garam finds it hard to thank Lugo because his ego is getting the better of him, and the fact that he is going to look like trash if the villagers ever find out that an adventurer ranked as high as him was saved by a mere villager. However, something inside of Garum tells him that Lugo is not a regular person. Lugo then takes the two to meet the village chief, who has been waiting for their arrival. They are greeted by both the village chief and the ever-enthusiastic fairy queen. Taimia's greeting pose looks totally weird to the visitors, leaving them to wonder if this is how the villagers behave. But in reality, Taimia was made to believe beforehand that her pose would turn out to be a killer. Without wasting time, the inspectors tell the village chief that they would like to look around the village since this is the first time they are going to hear or see fairies and humans living together. Taimia is excited to show the visitors around, and she suggests that Lugo come with them too. Just as the two are about to step out of the door, Lulu decides to use her power on the two, since she suspects that they are not ordinary people. Lulu activates her appraisal eye, which is called the Blessing of 100 Plans. She takes a glance at the fairy queen, and judging by what she sees, she realizes that the queen is not bluffing about being powerful. Lulu is impressed by what she is looking at, and this makes the visit to the village totally worth it. Even though Lulu wants to learn more about Taimia, her main target is the masked man, Lugo. She uses her powers on Lugo, but she is met with the biggest shock of her life, as she finds it difficult to read Lugo. Even his name doesn't pop up on the screen, and when she tries to look further, the screen just shatters right in front of her. All Lulu can see is a scary and terrifying aura with Lugo's voice, telling her to desist from prying into his business. Lulu cannot believe the fact that her ultimate power is not enough to look into what Lugo has underneath him. This realization sends a shock down her spine, causing her to lose her footing, but before she falls to the ground, Lugo appears behind her and catches her. She gently turns to Lugo, asking him who he is, but Lugo reiterates the fact that it will be better for Lulu if she doesn't know. Garum notices that Lulu is off, and when he asks her what the problem is, she simply says she is feeling a bit of a headache, and she lies about the stress associated with the trip. Since Lulu isn't feeling too well, the fairy queen suggests that they visit the village's apothecary, so she can take a look at her. Taimia leads the group to the village's clinic, but Garum is not impressed with the building's appearance, and he assumes that it is run down. Lulu scolds Garum for being rude, but she somewhat agrees with what the guy is saying. The clinic is in no way up to that of the capital, but she has no choice at this point. They enter the clinic, and Lulu is shocked to find out that the apothecary is a young girl. Before she can show any sign of hesitation, Leland welcomes her into the clinic, assuring her that everything is already in place to take care of her. As expected, Garum opens his loud mouth to talk, asking if there is no real doctor in the village, as he assumes that Leland is nothing more than an assistant. Taimia cannot believe how rude Garum is, but Leland doesn't even take offense at the entire thing. Lulu lies down on the clinic bed and tells her partner to calm his nerves. Judging by the way Leland has carried herself, Lulu is confident that she is a talented apothecary, and including the fact that she can smell herbs on her, Lulu is assured that she is in safe hands. Once they are all in agreement and Leland realizes that Lulu is trusting her to treat her, she activates her power. This shocks Lulu even further because she doesn't expect Leland to possess a blessing. Leland lets her know that she possesses the blessing of the minor spirit, and because she is an apothecary, she works with the spirits. Lulu cannot believe that there are loads of surprising people and things in the village, but all she can do is wonder just how amazing the village is. Thanks to her power, Leland is able to figure out that Lulu is not feeling too well because the flow of magical energy inside of her is disrupted. Leland then calls on Paisha to bring the medicines number 6 and number 17. The fact that Leland has an assistant provides a moment of shock to the inspectors, but they are more shocked when they realize that the assistant is a freaking fairy. Paisha delivers the medicine, and with her interaction with Leland, Lulu realizes that the two call each other by their names, and this further adds to her surprise. Leland gives Lulu the 2 meds, telling her that one erases her headaches and the other adjusts the magical flow in her body. The fact that Leland has these kinds of medicine in her clinic impresses Lulu, because getting something like this is even harder in the capital, but Lelim lets her know that she is able to produce meds like this thanks to Paisha and the other fairies. When it comes to herbs, the fairies are arguably the best, since they know exactly where the herbs grow. And after gathering the herbs, it is left to Lilim to combine them and make medicines out of them. Thanks to this, the village no longer has to buy expensive meds from the capital. But while Lilim is explaining all of this, Lulu is in her head, thinking about how fairies are monsters. However, she is conflicted on this because monsters would not help humans, let alone show them where to find herbs. Nonetheless, Lulu is prepared to take the medicine because from this, she will know if the fairies are truly evil or not. Lulu swallows the meds, and at that very moment, the headache vanishes, leaving the inspectors shocked. Lulu is forced to admit that the medicine is incredible, and the fact that it acts pretty fast makes it superior to the ones they have in the capital. Lilim gladly takes pride in her work, but also gives credit to Paisha because she helped out. Lulu comes to the realization that Lilim is extremely talented, and it would be nice if she could leave the village. Without hesitation, Lulu asks Lilim if she has ever thought of coming to the capital because, with the level of skill that the young girl has, she will be in high demand at the capital. In fact, the guild will provide support for her, and in no time, Lilim will have a much larger clinic to work in. However, Lilim politely rejects the offer, and Lulu can only wonder why the girl would turn down such a generous and tempting offer. She tries to convince her again, letting her know that top-class facilities and a huge pay will be waiting for her in the capital if she agrees to the proposal. Lilim doesn't even think twice before rejecting the offer yet again, telling Lulu that she is happy where she is, but doesn't deny the fact that having better equipment will go a long way. However, she wants the equipment to help the people, and leaving the village will definitely cause problems for the villagers. In addition, Paisha and the other fairies help her out, which means she can become a better apothecary just by staying in the village. Lilim then continues by praising the fairies, saying that they are incredible creatures. They know about herbs, and they also warn the villagers ahead of time when visitors are approaching the village. It then dawns on Lulu that the fairies would have known about her coming, and Tiamia reinforces this by letting her know that the fairies fly over the village and they come back with reports just in case they see something off. Before Lulu can propose the capital to Tiamia, she rejects the offer in advance, telling the inspectors that she feels very safe when she is around Lugo. After hearing this, Garam doesn't blame the fairy because he has witnessed Lugo's skill firsthand. However, he is still interested in Lugo, and Garam asks him to show them how he goes about his daily routine. Lulu is also happy to jump on the bandwagon, and being one who doesn't shy away from challenges, Lugo agrees to show them what he usually does, day in and day out. Moments later, the inspectors are already regretting their decision to see Lugo's daily routine. They are now inside the forest, and they are running from a bunch of death worms that would gladly make a meal out of them. To make things worse, a giant death worm joins the chase, making life totally difficult for the two. Staring at the inspectors from a distance are Lugo, the village chief, and the fairy queen. These three don't look a bit worried, even though a natural disaster-level threat is coming their way. Apparently, this is a normal thing at the village, and the village chief is already used to seeing something like this. The inspectors manage to reach where the trio is waiting, and the first thing the chief offers them is tea, leaving the inspectors to wonder if the old man even knows the severity of the situation they have found themselves in. Garam grabs the village chief, telling him that they need to call for reinforcements from the capital because the village will be wiped out if they fail to act. Suddenly, Garam notices something off, and when he turns around to look, he realizes that the smaller death worms are no longer moving. It turns out that Tiamia has used her theft magic to steal the souls of the death worms, rendering them incapable of moving. Garam is left in shock as he tries to wrap his head around what he just witnessed. Apparently, monsters are also vulnerable to Tiamia's theft magic, but now that they have gotten rid of the smaller death worms, they still have the scary giant one to watch out for. Tiamia tells the group that the giant worm is immune to her theft magic, which means she is out of commission for this one. She then turns to Lugo, asking him to help her out with the giant beast, but even Lugo admits that taking down the beast is going to be tricky. The worm's core is on its head, which means magic won't reach it, and while Lugo is trying to figure out a way around the problem, Garum is busy preaching to them that retreating would be their best option if they want to make it out of there alive. Just then, Lugo turns around to look at Garum, and this is when he notices that Garum has a nice sword that he can make use of. Lugo points to the adventurer's sword, asking him to lend him the sword for a moment. Garum has no choice but to give out his sword, and once he is armed with the sword, Lugo makes his stance. This is a stance that he hasn't used in a long time, but at that moment, Lulu seems to recognize it. She remembers that she had seen something like this before, and it was none other than a stance that was mastered by the hero, Luke. Within the blink of an eye, Lugo leaps from where he is and cuts through the giant death worm, destroying its core and defeating it. The village chief cannot be prouder of the moment, and he uses this to tell Lulu that Azima village is safe as long as it has its guardian, Lugo, watching over it. Not long after, the inspectors leave the village after gathering all the intel and reports that they need. Lulu writes in her report that there are no fairies living in the forest, because all of them are now living inside Azima village. The presence of the fairies in the village has brought advancement to agriculture, mobility to the logistics industry, and speed that pushed industrialization. In addition, the elderly are receiving help from the fairies, and this has been a big blessing to the village. The fairies have no issue living in the village because it is very safe, and this is all thanks to one person. Lulu wants to add Lugo to her report, but she hesitates until Garum tells her not to. He urges her to talk about Lugo, and how strong and amazing he is. Garum is already thinking of how he is going to tell the guildmaster about everything in an attempt to get Lugo on board. With what he has seen with Lugo, Garum knows learning from him is the best option he has. Some moments before leaving the village, Lulu had asked Lugo if he had any intentions of coming to the capital, but his answer was the same as his friends. However, he gave Lulu some ray of hope, telling her that the Fairy Queen and Lilim might change their minds if she keeps trying, but as for him, there is no chance in hell. However, Lulu has this faint conviction in her mind that Lugo might consider the offer if she is persistent with her offer. As the journey to the capital continues, Garum tells Lulu that they are in need of a new hero, and with the way things are, Lugo looks like the prime candidate for the job. Lulu has also been thinking the same thing, and she decides to tell the Saintess, Lisha, about Lugo, hoping that they will be able to convince him to take on the job of the hero. But knowing Lugo's backstory, there is no way he is getting betrayed a second time.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing and watching the next video on your screen. Also, let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below, and feel free to suggest what you want to see in the next video.